And hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Chicanery. We are your hosts. I am Danny, and we have JT.
Hello, once again.
And so this episode is gonna be sports cars. Certainly one of my favorite things. So yeah, this is just gonna be kind of a run through of the litany of happenings since the last time we all convened to talk about sports cars. I was saying, talking to you off air, but there's just a lot of stuff, like a remarkable amount that happened that I don't know. I guess just kind of got lost in the shuffle. Especially, again, this a bit of foreshadowing. My favorite literary device, especially some of the drama and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I guess all of that truly has happened since the last time we convened. And so it's just funny to go through and read the notes and kind of see this. But I guess without any further waffling about, I guess let's get into it. But first, a word from our sponsor, Home Field Apparel. Home Field has entered the thrilling world of motorsports with the Hendrick Motorsport Collection, which is available to pre-order now. Based out of Indianapolis, you likely already know Home Field for their high-quality, officially licensed collegiate apparel. You probably also know that they have more than 180 schools on their roster, so there's a little something for everyone. I mean, seriously, they even have my local Division II school, Wayne State University. Given Home Field's storied legacy in throwback college apparel and their relentless commitment to quality, moving to racing apparel seemed like the next logical step, and that's reaffirmed in their meticulous approach to designing the Hendrick Motorsport Collection. Iconic logos, legendary drivers, and unforgettable moments, this collection is a celebration of the golden era of NASCAR. Here at Victory Lane Vibes, we're super excited to get our hands on what Home Field has cooked up. Their collegiate wear is second to none. And in concert with some of the most legendary drivers and one of the most legendary teams in NASCAR history, the Hendrick Motorsports Collection is a banger. To learn more, visit www.homefieldapparel.com. Their online storefront is easy and convenient to navigate, making it that much easier for you to proudly represent your favorite drivers and relive NASCAR's glory days. And be sure to use promo code VLV24 for 15% off at checkout on your first order. Again, the Hendrick Motorsport Collection is available to pre-order now. Use promo code VLV24 for 15% off at checkout on your first order. And thanks again to Home Field Apparel for supporting this podcast. So I guess we'll kind of hit on the GT's cars at Sonoma. And I guess the big talking point for all of that was that there were issues with the paving, because there were issues with like bits of the track like coming up and stuff, and then they had to like repave those sections at light speed. Like it's like, what, didn't they finish up the paving like mere hours before they were set to like practice, if I remember correctly?
I don't actually remember. I think so. I just know like they had to cancel like some testing sessions because there was like issues with the pavement that they just paved coming up, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is just wild. And it's like that's the thing. It's like a repave is fairly straightforward, and I'm just kind of curious to how they goofed that. If I'm being completely
I
honest,
mean, I feel like rarely, if ever, a repave or most recent repaves have not really gone that well.
you're
I mean, Road
absolutely
America, I think, is the only circuit that I can say that was repaved recently, and the repave didn't, you know, end in catastrophe or have too much drama with it.
yeah. I was just about to say that's really the only one, and that, dare I say, is the way that it really should go. All of these, recent issues, and even at some established circuits with like repaves and construction, and then it's like it's a mess for the first day. I don't know. Maybe I just because doing this, I pay closer attention to this kind of thing now. But it feels like such an alien concept, if I'm being perfectly honest. Um, but um, but yeah, it was just wild. But at any rate, I guess into more fun stuff.
I don't know. The listeners can let us know if we're right or we just have recency bias.
That is distinctly possible. I will never say that I don't suffer from that because I know I absolutely do. But at any rate, yes, moving into the TGR Cup, Weston Workman, which again, fabulous name. I love it. He scored a podium, which is cool because we saw him at Sebring. So that was fun. And then a friend of the pod, Samantha Tan and Neil Verhagen. Got P2 and GT Challenge America, which was super duper fun. It's always cool to see, especially folks who have been on either show, um, sit and basically go and do well. And so it's kind of, for her to have that happen basically so soon after we chatted with her, it's like, oh, it's so fun. It's like, yeah, that's my friend. Yeah, kind of, sort of. But parasocial relationships aside, additionally, GT World Challenge Europe was at Paul Ricard. Um, and I guess customary question, and I'll toss this to you first. But good race or no?
I mean, in my opinion, it was a good race. I thought the racing was decent from at least standards of Paul Ricard, honestly.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was coming from. Of course, lots of memes have been made about F1 and just generally the FIA ladder series being absolutely woeful at Paul Ricard. But honestly, this wasn't bad. I was pleasantly surprised with the product that we got.
Like I saw whoever was running the main account at the time tweeting that like F1 should have never left Paul Ricard, and I'm like, I mean, I don't think F1 would have put on the same type of race that GT World Challenge would.
Yeah, so first of all, that wasn't me. I don't know which one of the goofballs on the other
I
show that
figured
was.
it wasn't you because you know what you're talking about. So no shade, but like clearly I just figured that okay, whoever tweeted this doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't do that because, like you said, Paul Ricard has been woeful since basically its inception. Because even like '90s F1 at Paul Ricard was really bad. Um, but yeah, no, that wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe they'll hear this episode and one of them will fess up. But it was probably Carl. $10 says it was Carl. Actually, I'm almost positive it was. But at any rate, a recurring theme with these Mustangs is the pieces of the rear bodywork just parting company with the car. It has happened yet again. Um, I mean, we've talked about it before. I've explained sort of the science behind it. I don't need to re-explain it. It's like, okay, when is Ford gonna fix this?
They
I
won't
just
fix it. They'll just wait until the entire rear wing just falls off in the middle of the track.
I feel like we're not that far away from that happening at this point. It's like we've lost the rear sail panel, we've lost the rear trunk lid, we've lost the rear diffuser, we've lost all three at some point. I just the only thing left on the rear end of those cars to go would be the wing. Now you wouldn't lose the stanchions, the uprights, because those are chassis
Well, you
mounted.
just lose the wing part.
Yes, I was just about to say you'll just lose the actual wing at one of these points.
And then it'll turn into a Peugeot.
Um, the wingless wonder, my beloved. Huh. Anyway, enough of me waxing lyrical over the crummy Peugeot that didn't work but looked cool. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. And like I said, it still seems like such an odd oversight. Again, I understand, I know what the cause is, but the fact that they didn't like try that in testing is, running the cars basically nose to tail because that's how it's happening. Um, is just wild to me. But anyway, next up is that the Aston Martin decided to be very British and it caught fire. Um, Once again, like with a lot of these technical fails, and I noticed it a lot in endurance racing, I didn't see an official cause of death listed. I'm assuming an oil line ruptured somewhere. That's usually what causes it. But yes, it after we were singing their praises post Sebring, they have gone and completely pooed themselves here, which is a shame because again, the Aston Martin is another car I genuinely adore. I love those street cars. Um, but at any rate, um, the number 32 BMW DNF'd after having an argument with a Ferrari and losing. So basically, ran into a Ferrari, which resulted in a puncture, perhaps unsurprisingly. And the tire completely disintegrates and it shreds up the bodywork. We see it happen time and time again. Um, we saw it happen to the Porsche at Sebring, and actually most recently, to try to time this into something reasonably timely, it happened to Seabell at Martinsville. Um, but
Yes, Charles Wirtz being at the scene of the crime once again.
I was just about to say this is just classic Charles Wirtz.
I mean, this is the second time this year that he DNF'd the car.
Yes, it is. uh, yeah, I don't know.
He
I mean,
DNF'd, and it's like they literally. I mean, they were. It's funny because they had two other drivers that were supposed to do stints, but then like it wasn't that far into the race when it
mhm.
happened, and the race was only 2 hours. So it's like, okay, they were just there for the vibes. They were just there to just be emotional support, even though the car didn't make it. It's like at this point, this dude is a brand risk to BMW. Like they need to like either he needs to tighten up or just like replace him or something.
Honestly, I completely agree with all of that. Although I must say it would be really nice to basically get paid to show up and not actually do anything. That would be like that sounds great. But yeah, I completely I completely agree. It's a little frustrating having him tearing up the car again. And well, yeah, like I said, it's just frustrating.
Which honestly, I didn't even suspect that he was that bad, but because like he has like won, like that car has won a race. I mean, it was last year at the 9 hours of Kailami, I think.
Mhm.
But I'm like, now that I see how this year has turned out, I'm like, okay, not only that, but then like later on, the same that car also won like the 8 hours of Indy. However, he wasn't on the lineup. He was replaced
Nope.
by somebody else. I think it was Philip Ang or something. But I'm like, okay, now I see. It was just the other two drivers, freaking Dries and Sheldon, carrying it. That's why he freaking won. He probably wasn't even doing that much.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably not super far from the truth. I don't know. Is that why? Well, I know part of it is Audi's restructuring their motorsports operations right now, sort of in prep for F1. But I feel like that is just but a convenient excuse to get rid of Wirtz because he was an Audi Sport factory driver until he joined BMW. It's like when Ken Tyrrell rage quit his own team because of Ricardo Rosset. They nuked the
Who
whole
knows?
they
At
nuked the
this
whole
point,
GT
I'm like,
program.
y'all need to do something about this man. Like, please come get this man. I don't know, somebody. Because at this point, I do not want him here.
Honestly, not particularly either. But oh well. And speaking of BMWs not having a great day, the number 98. they completely botched getting enough fuel in the car, and then ended up having to pit again, which I don't really understand quite how they managed that. Um, that I guess you could say that that's just talent, but it's like, okay, based on fuel calculations, you should know how much you need it, and it's like, and I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Short fueling just doesn't work. This is not the kind of racing where short fueling works. I don't know, but it's weird and dumb,
I
and
mean, the BMW won the race, so I mean, they had a just their day was just a roller coaster, I guess.
yeah. But moving on to NLS. Is we had this was, I mean, basically the start of the season, and we had some kind of fun folks hanging out. First of all, my mortal enemies returned to racing. Glickenhaus is back, and I am not happy about it at all. Kamui Kobayashi was there, and then the internet's two most favorite sim racing nerds were there, Jimmy Broadbent and Steve Brown, or Super GT, if you remember him before he actually started doing real racing. And they were supported by Misha Sheridan, who was kind of the star driver for the Apex Taxi service, basically taxi services, the Nordschleife. Um, he was the face of that channel's, basically all of their exploits, but is doing like actual racing stuff. Also worked with Rimac for a while as well. So he's actually got quite the impressive resume. But yeah, they were some fun folks were there. So race one, Falcon, the Falcon Motorsports Porsche, um, won overall in GT3, and now in GT4, actually, Jimmy, Steve, and Misha almost won in race one, but had a puncture like right at the end, which screwed them a bit. But they did go on and win race two in GT4, which was well done. I mean, it was just a pretty clean race. As for GT's, Apt Motorsports absolutely screwed it. Like I, I have not seen a fumble that hard in a race in a while. So make a, truth be told, actually not very long story, even a little bit shorter. Pepper was basically told to basically just let the clock run out, because they basically weren't gonna make it on fuel. But he slowed down too much, and Ventor and Amantai, Porsche, snatched the win as a direct result, which is just, that's one of those things. Like if it were in a movie, somebody would go, "That's stupid. Get rid of it." But this actually happened, and I think it's very funny.
I don't know. I feel like I'd probably I'd lose my mind after that. I'd probably have to contemplate, you know, ending myself.
Yeah, it's just like that. It is. It's such a horrible way to lose a win, like genuinely. It's probably the most embarrassment Apt Motorsports has had to deal with since that whole shenanigans with Audi and the Formula E team, to be fair. Which, that was a time and a half. Anyway, um, but yeah, yeah, that's just nuts.
It was literally the equivalent of them just if they ran the entire field, okay, and then got to the 5 yard line and then fumbled and dropped the ball.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like a red zone interception. That's basically what it is. You're
Like they had pretty
absolutely
much a
right.
flawless race. Like their race, there was nothing wrong. Nobody
Nope.
did anything. There was
Nope.
nothing crazy that happened up until the last freaking minute. when it
Uh,
actually mattered.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's wild when this kind of stuff happens, but
The lights were too bright, stage was too big for them. They couldn't do it.
clearly. Oh my gosh. Um, but I guess it's fitting that we're doing NLS stuff because there was quite a bit of drama with the Nürburgring race series. So I was wanting to skip the name just because it's long and wordy, but I'm going to do it for a little bit of context sake. So basically, there are a couple of of course you have the Nürburgring Langstrecken series, NLS. However, the effective owners and operators of the Nürburgring um, basically wanted to run their own series, and it would have been the Nürburgring Endurance Series because I guess I was like, I still to this day don't really know what the impetus for that decision was. What the issue with NLS was that the operators of the Nürburgring felt it mandatory to effectively yank a whole series or attempt to, mind you, from NLS.
I have
Do you?
no idea. I literally have no clue like what even stemmed from this. I know like I think this drama like initially might have started like in the off season, like December or like even earlier this year, like January, February, and then it's just been ongoing. Now, the as far as it goes for the Nurburgring Endurance Series, that has ceased to actually fully get off the ground because they were initially supposed to have their opener double header weekend for their season back on like the weekend of March 19th. That never happened. They ended up canceling that, I think, like a few days before.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's pretty much just been question marks. So, who knows?
Yeah, because didn't they only get like a single digit amount of entries, if I recall correctly, and that was part of what the impetus for canceling it was?
I I want to say that's what it was.
Yeah, it's just very silly, very messy, and frankly, thoroughly unnecessary. Like, NLS has been kind of a fixture of Nürburgring racing and the need to, generate basically a kart IRL split is just so dumb. Like this didn't need to happen, but the owners of the operators of the Nürburgring basically they forced the issue. But oh well. What speaking of drama, GTD and IMSA, and this was actually as of the time of this recording, it's about 2 weeks ago. Is that AWA is withdrawing the number 17 Corvette, so the only one with a decent paint. Um, and it was in this really weird, like rage quit, take my ball and going home. So it was initially an Instagram post, which if I had been thinking maybe when I was looking over the notes, I would have seen if I can find it and embed it. But anyway, it was later announced on Twitter that they were basically withdrawing the car and that they were continuing with just the number 13. Basically, the statement from AWA on Twitter was that Anthony Mantella has elected to step away from the GTD program. At this moment in time, the number 13 car will continue to proceed as planned and will be present at the upcoming round in Long Beach. And same thing, it's like, again, I feel like that, that Ryan Reynolds meme where he's got the hospital get up on and he takes the surgical mask off and it's just like, but why? Like again, I would be curious to know what the impetus was. Is he having some issues with GM? Is he tired of being clowned by the collective? Given that it is the two Corvettes are comfortably the slowest things in well, truth be told, both GTD classes, if I'm being honest. Pratt Miller strategy is the only reason why the factory cars haven't been dead last in every race so far. I'm curious to know quite what's going on here.
I mean, it's funny because like initially when people saw like the Instagram posts, people didn't really take it that seriously. Like honestly, like none of us, at least in the group chat I sent it in, none of us really thought it was serious because it seemed like, they were joking about, oh yeah, we got a, Corvette, you like barely used Corvette for sale or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I thought this was just like kind of like low key, like a venting type thing. Like you're just expressing their frustration at how badly their season's gone so far. Because I mean, again, to be fair, like we've said before, their season has gone pretty terribly. They're pretty much either DNFing or they're finishing like dead last in the whole entire like GTD field. So like I get it, but then like it later came out that they were withdrawing one of their entries. So I'm like, okay, it was real.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I just, yeah, like I said, I don't get it. Maybe he bit off more than he could chew with, we're trying to run two cars, and maybe that was really the problem. I don't know what the communication pipeline is between GM and customers, given that GM doesn't really do customer teams as such traditionally. Um, Certainly not in like that kind of capacity, like GTs. I mean, you can argue in Cup that basically everybody that's not Hendrick is a customer team to some extent, but that operational relationship is a little bit different. But but yeah, no, it was, and it's like I said, it's just weird. But at any rate, moving on. One bit of, I guess, fun news, all the Nurburgring stuff, is that the Dacia Logan is returning. Now, of course, it got annihilated by, what was that, a Porsche at the Nurburgring 24 last year, I think.
It was a
Yeah,
Porsche.
yeah, that's what I thought. Annihilated it, and I mean, it totaled the car. So the Logan, it is, as a result, it is not the same car. It's a different chassis, I guess. I don't know. I feel like that's strong wording for a Dacia Logan to be saying, oh, well, it's a different chassis. No, it's just a race prep streetcar. But at any rate, there's another one. It's coming back. It's the same team. It's all the same folks, and that makes me happy because those are kind of the unsung heroes of last year's Nurburgring 24. And yeah, it'll just as cool to see them get back and get to it. We talked about it a bit in the previous episode, so we won't spend too long here because we inadvertently got into it when talking about Seb possibly unretiring in talks with Mercedes. But he tested a Porsche Penske 963. Um, and there's been lots of question marks as to if we'll see him at a race soon. It doesn't, certainly there doesn't look like there are any immediate plans to put him in the car, because the Le Mans entry list has been published and all of the Porsche Penske spots are full, if I remember correctly. Are they not?
No,
Who
one of the
who?
entries is still like two, I think, TBAs, and then like the other person. There's only one driver announced on it, which was like Gemini, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. Huh. I don't know why I thought they were all full. But at any rate, I
It's
guess,
because Porsche enters like at least I think last year what they had like three
yeah.
like entries at Le Mans or something
Yeah,
like
because it was the
that.
5, the 6, and the 7. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe that's why maybe my brain just had a bit of a moment. But yeah, I guess that would be about the only place where that really makes sense then, is for him to be at Le Mans. But yeah, but like I said, there's certainly nothing has been announced. Nothing has been final as of the time of this recording. Now you may listen to this in, a month and be like, oh yeah, they announced him for Le Mans. Well, good job, future you. You have more information than we do, as of April 9th at about 8 o'clock Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So enjoy your time travel, friend. But at any rate, uh, then we have penalties for Qatar. Those were announced actually pretty recently. This is just a moment where being apparently a fan of GM Motorsports just means constant pain. Uh, because the O2 Cadillac got DQ'd for a modification to a homologated part, which, if you'll remember, that is the same thing that got actually all four Corvettes in trouble at Sebring, which is just like, come on, guys. Which, and I guess given that Qatar was before Sebring, I guess that means the Cadillac did it first. But it's just like, jumping Jack Flash. It's like, can we please stop doing this? Because see, at least with Sebring, it was just they all got shuffled to the back of the grid. Well, to be fair, the AWA Corvettes were there anyway. But the factory cars, after qualifying on pole, mind you, got shuffled to the back. But in the case of the Cadillac, it just means a DQ.
Which I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about DQs like after a race is done. Like, to be honest, to some extent, I do feel like it is a bit silly just because like this, like, I mean, it felt like, I think it was like what? Like it was weeks after the race had already happened that they announced the DQ, which I'm like, at this point, it probably doesn't even matter that much.
No, not particularly, because the penalty list, like I said, as the time of this recording, I guess that would have been a couple weeks ago. Which, as of then, we were like 3 weeks out from the race. So yeah, and that was the other thing. I'm glad you said that, because I was just gonna say, I'm like, what is the point of announcing it's this late? But but for a less painful but very funny way to cop a penalty. The AF Corsa Ferrari, which is one of the 296s, got fined 60,000 euros, which, and actually, my wonderful note writer for sports cars very helpfully included the exchange rate, which is about 65 grand for all of us silly Americans for sneaking in extra engineers, which in and of itself, you go, well, props for trying. But the way that they went about it is very funny. The team tried to disguise them as basically ancillary staff, so like sales, marketing, and what have you. And then after they got busted, they was like they tried to say, "Oh, well, they didn't touch the car." Like, if that isn't the most Ocean's 11 ass way of trying to sneak in extra personnel, I don't know what is, but I genuinely love it. That
Next time
like
they need to like teach these people how to like take photos and stuff like that. That way you can be more conspicuous.
Yeah,
And just
exactly.
be like, and if somebody looks like you got like a freaking like staff member decides to come in the freaking garage and like look and see what's going on, it's like you can be like, look, see, they're taking photos. They're not engineers. They're photographers.
Yeah, I was just about to say get them the high vis jacket and like I don't know, I'm sure. Well, I mean, truth be told, it's a race team. They can afford for everybody to have one DSLR and like a telephoto lens. Just have them like get used ones and then they're fine. So that way they're not paying, 50 grand in cameras. But
I just wonder what the conversation was with those engineers. It's like, what did they even say to them? They're just like, yeah, so here's the deal, guys. We're gonna sneak you guys into the garage, but you're not engineers. You are sales marketing. You're not engineers. And if anybody asks you if you're an engineer, just say, no, I'm here for the marketing.
and then here's the next question is if I'm assuming that they did a halfway competent job of disguising themselves, who tipped off the powers that be? Did
I bet it was
somebody
another team. It had to have been another team that snitched on them and saw.
I say, but then the question is like, okay, did the other team figure out because they're I say disguises. It's like if we're talking about, fake mustaches and wigs here. But it's like, was it because their outfits were trash and somebody figured it out? Or did somebody catch wind some other way?
I bet because like I bet what it probably was definitely like an outfit thing because I feel like at least some racing series I've noticed for like um the mechanics that work in the garage, a lot of them will have like some sort of like indicator like on like their outfit somewhere on their fire suits. Like I've seen some of them, they have like an armband
Mhm.
like strap thing that goes like around their like upper arm and stuff like that. That I think maybe there's some like indication on like their clothing that you know tells like what their job is. Because I know like obviously you have like drivers have their fire suits and stuff like that, and it has like their name and stuff like that on like the belt at the waist. So I'm like, I feel like it was something like that. And then somebody clocked it and then we're like and then reported it to the FIA and snitched on them and then they got busted.
Yeah, it's so silly. Um that well, like I said, that this is a thing that happened in, 2024. I feel like this is something what would have happened in, 1984. Trying to sneak extra personnel through. And to be fair, it probably would have worked in 1984. Everybody was dumb as hell. But at any rate, but yeah, it's just so funny. But I genuinely applaud them for trying that. That is one of the most creative ways to try to circumvent rules that I've seen in quite some time, to be honest.
I
Um,
bet it wasn't I bet a team that probably snitched on them was probably a team that wasn't really like even doing well at the race anyways. Like I
Truth be
wouldn't be
told,
surprised if it was like the Akotis Lexus team or somebody that snitched on them because well, they weren't doing well the whole weekend and one of their cars broke. So they probably had time. One of their cars broke. They had plenty of time to be walking around the paddock or the garage and checking out, seeing what's going on. I'm sure so I'm sure it was them.
yeah, honestly, that's probably not a bad shout. But you say that, as a result of these penalties and DQs, Toyota got some points as a result. They had a torrid weekend, and our favorite penalty merchants got points. So it could have been somebody somewhere at BMW was like, wait a
It
minute,
was the BMW hypercar team, one of
yeah,
them that got points from the Cadillac DQ.
mm-hmm.
Which who knows? They could have snitched too.
I was just about to say, like I said, somebody had to have seen this and went, "Hey, wait a second. I'll have to look and see what the arranging. Maybe I'll see if anybody published the pit box arrangements for Qatar. That could actually explain it. But yeah, that's just so funny. Um,
No, BMW are straight up penalty merchants.
yeah, I mean that was how they got that race victory at the Glen in IMSA was because the Porsche got disqualified. It's so funny. But I mean, I guess if it works, eh?
I mean, if it works, it works. I just think that it's just hilarious that this is the second time this has happened.
I do too. I completely agree. But but yes, that is a bit of malfeasance in motorsports. That's actually kind of fun, huh? I might have to sit down and record. Maybe in the off season we'll have to. In the winter, we'll have to sit down and record an episode of just dumb stuff like that, where people try silly things and it sometimes works. But something that is, well, not malicious is certainly annoying. WEC is going to start requiring a minimum of 2 entries for hyperclass next year. And this is supremely stupid. Um, because you have the issues of smaller teams aren't going to enjoy this at all. And then also, same thing. It's the Ryan Reynolds Giphy. But why? I don't understand.
They're literally creating a solution to a problem that does not exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's no shortage of hypercar entries. There's 19.
No.
You don't need any more. And there's really no reason to sit up here and be like, yeah, like, we need more than 19. I mean, you already have, I mean, at this point, it's like, why are we calling it the World Endurance Championship? Just call it the World Hypercar Series or something. Because it's like, what? You're going to get to the point where you expand hypercars so much that not only do we get rid of LMP2, but we're getting rid of LMGT3 too or something. Like, you don't need any more. Like at this point, they're just being greedy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't get it. It's like if, teams want to run one car, let them. Because like you said, there's no shortage of them, given that some of the programs have expanded a bit. some are just using this year as kind of a warm-up year with WEC and IMSA. Yeah, I don't yeah, I truly don't understand why this is being mandated. Now, interestingly enough, the rule that basically says no more than two factory hypercars, that rule is still in effect, with, of course, Le Mans being the outlier. But yeah, but like the customer and privateer teams are so boned. Like the Sodas for Skeeny, yeah, they're toast. um, and heck, even given that Lamborghini is currently only doing one car, and that's a full factory entry. But as they're splitting their time and effort, it's like you're gonna tell. Well, I say you're gonna tell, but clearly, yes, they told Lamborghini. They basically said, yeah, you need to have a second car. If anything, I could see this having the opposite effect, and I can see some folks potentially going, actually, you know what, I'm good, and leaving. So I suspect that the net increase of hypercars next year is going to be pretty small.
That's
And
what
it's like,
some other people speculated, that they'll probably just, instead of them like, okay, you need a minimum of two hypercars. We need two hypercars from you. That some teams are just like, actually, you're getting none from us, and we're leaving.
yeah,
Don't ever speak to me or my son again.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. And it's like, because, like, I mean, we don't have a ton of information about what Aston Martin is doing, but given that it's Aston Martin and their factory programs are a bit flaky at the best of times, witnessed them, basically them and ProDrive divorcing when they were on top of the world in ALMS 15 years ago now. But yeah, I had assumed that was probably only going to be one car, and now they're like two. I would be amazed. A, if it was two cars from the outset, or B, if it is one car that they're gonna make it two, and that they're like actually gonna follow that and not just bugger off. Yeah, like I said, I think that the net increase in cars, given that we will have an additional manufacturer come this time next year, is gonna be pretty small. But whatever, I guess. But yeah, but all of these rule tweaks, it does, and like I understand, definitely hypercar is kind of Wex baby. Like I get it, and they're proud of it, and they want to do stuff to have more. But really, a lot of the rule changes and shuffles and modifications really does feel like it's just for hypercar, which is very funny. But
I mean, again, it's like you said, it's their new baby. They're happy with it, and they obviously, clearly, by this rule, they want more hypercars, even though it's like, again, you don't need any more.
agreed. Because like I said, especially with the increase, we've have, Alpine and Lamborghini this year. We'll have Aston Martin next year. It's like, work to maybe just try and lure some. I, and this may potentially be a hot take. I certainly don't know how folks feel about this kind of thing within sort of WEC circles, at least. But I would rather them just go out of their way to roll out the red carpet for additional OEMs. It's like if you're gonna make changes because you want to bolster the class, that particular class grid, then like do whatever the French toast you've got to do to placate OEMs to get them in. I would much rather that, than this weird, again, mandating of cars.
Yeah,
You know,
because you're probably going to be driving out people you already have.
yeah, exactly. It's like, dangle the carrot to see if you can get more. Well, I guess it's not really more, given that, well, currently 3 of the 4 that are in GTP are also doing wet campaigns. But dangle the carrot to see if Acura cares. They might come play. It's like, I don't know. See if maybe you can convince Audi after all that, hypercar is worth it.
I don't
You know,
think so.
I mean,
I mean,
probably not, but
let's
you know,
not get our hopes up. I feel like that's wishful thinking at this point. I mean, when they canceled everything else, like, yeah, I think their minds are made up.
I mean, yeah, you're probably right, but I mean, still, go, hey, you can actually run in hypercar.
I
You
mean,
know,
they know that. They know that. They actually didn't they have their car built? They just
I,
like scrapped it
from
because
what
they're
I
like, oh no,
understand, yeah,
we
the
have
car was
problems.
pretty much done, and then they went, actually, never mind. But I
They
mean,
did the fucking Andy from Toy Story meme where like, I don't want to play with you anymore.
yeah,
And even if Audi did decide, like, okay, they were convinced, some like like if this was like, a rom com or something, or it's like a shitty situationship where it's like, oh yeah, this person's, they hit you up with the what are you doing or the hey with the smiley face or whatever. Audi doesn't have any drivers for all intents and purposes because I thought most of their drivers left them.
yeah, from what I understand,
So who's gonna drive the car?
they've pretty much all been dispersed elsewhere. They may have retained a few, but
I mean,
yeah,
they
and
have a few drivers, but once they're like customer, like GT programs, like disappear, the like they get Thanos snapped. What I don't know.
yeah, no,
I
you're
don't know what
absolutely
will
right.
happen.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. And to be fair, it wasn't, Audi wasn't a great manufacturer for that analogy. But, my broader point was just certainly that, yeah, like I said, just do whatever you've got to do to roll out the, red carpet for just more OEMs to join, especially if you want to bolster the field, having more variety just through manufacturers. Because, more cars is more good. Yes. But more cars from more manufacturers is even better. Um, and that is what I would be certainly most interested in seeing, I don't know. Maybe, you talk loud enough, maybe Ford will come. From what I understand, they're still kind of pissed off at Red Bull. So, if they decide, to take all of that sweet, sweet Dearborn money with them, then, basically go, hey, we'll, join Hypercar Plus. It's like, so like I said, there are ways to do this if they want more cars, I guess is really my broader point. But this mandating cars or mandating 2 cars minimum is not the way to encourage it, like I have speculated and a lot of folks on social media have. If anything, this has a bigger chance to just be a hindrance rather than a help. So, we'll have to see what happens. But this is one of those things where I definitely feel like no good will come of this. But I guess with that, that has been a chat about sports cars. Lots of little stuff and lots of very silly drama kind of populated this episode. Um, it's like this, reading the notes. This one almost felt like one of my F1 news cycle update scripts, if I'm being perfectly honest. Uh, but on that bombshell, it's time to end. I This has been an episode of Chicanery. We are your hosts, Danny and JT, and until next time, everyone.